carefully because what I am about to tell you is not being discussed on mainstream financial media for a reason, and if you blink, you might miss the setup of a lifetime. Right now, behind closed doors, while headlines distract retail with noise, political chess pieces are moving in ways that could completely rewrite the future of crypto, and XRP is sitting dead center in this storm. We are talking about regulatory pressure, election year maneuvering, global financial power struggles, and a silent war between old money and digital rails. Ask yourself this extreme question right now. Why would politicians suddenly shift tone on crypto at the same moment institutions like BlackRock, Fidelity, and the IMF are openly discussing tokenization, cross-border settlement, and digital liquidity? This is not coincidence, this is alignment, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Prepare for shock, because what looks like political chaos on the surface may actually be coordinated positioning underneath, and XRP holders are either about to be rewarded for patience or shaken out before the real move even begins. Here is where things get absolutely insane. Political activity is not just noise, it is signaling. When lawmakers argue on television about crypto regulation, when the SEC drags its feet, when Ripple executives are suddenly appearing in policy discussions, this is not dysfunction, this is delay. Delay favors institutions, not retail. The same governments that publicly warn about crypto risk are privately exploring blockchain infrastructure, central bank digital currencies, and settlement layers that make SWIFT look like a fax machine. And guess which asset has been stress-tested, legally battle-hardened, and already integrated into enterprise-grade payment corridors? Exactly. XRP. This changes everything, because if political winds are shifting even slightly toward clarity, even grudgingly, the repricing of compliant, scalable crypto assets could be violent. WTF do you think happens when regulatory uncertainty lifts even a little, and institutional money realizes it has been waiting on the sidelines for permission, not technology? Before we go any further, if you want to stay ahead of what is coming and not hear about it after the move is already over, you need to subscribe right now and turn on notifications, because this channel connects dots others refuse to connect. We are breaking down political signals, institutional behavior, and XRP-specific developments in real time, and missing even one of these updates could cost you massively. Stay with me, because in the next part, we are going to expose the data points, the authority figures, and the subtle confirmations that suggest this political activity is not bearish for XRP at all, but potentially the ignition phase of something much bigger, something most people will only understand after it is too late. Honored viewers, now we step into the zone where denial becomes impossible, because once you see the data and the authority figures involved, the idea that this is all random political theater completely collapses. Look closely at what has been happening over the last year. The SEC, the most feared regulatory body in crypto, has been forced into a defensive posture, not an offensive one, and that alone should set off alarm bells in your mind. When was the last time a regulator lost narrative control and quietly recalibrated its language around digital assets? At the same time, Ripple executives are not hiding in the shadows. They are speaking openly with lawmakers, central banks, and global financial institutions, while XRP remains one of the only digital assets with real-world usage in cross-border payments. That is not retail speculation, that is infrastructure. This is not hype. This is positioning. Now let's talk about authority, because this is where the mainstream narrative completely breaks. BlackRock, the largest asset manager on the planet, does not casually discuss tokenization, on-chain settlement, and blockchain rails unless the groundwork is already being laid. The IMF does not publish papers about faster, cheaper cross-border payments unless governments are asking for solutions. The World Economic Forum does not host panels on digital assets unless political leaders are already behind the scenes debating implementation, and yet, XRP sits right in the middle of every serious conversation about liquidity, settlement, and interoperability. Ask yourself this extreme question. If XRP was irrelevant, why has it survived legal attack, regulatory ambiguity, and market cycles while thousands of other projects vanished into dust? Survival at this level is not luck, it is validation. Here is the data point that should make your heart rate spike. Institutional adoption does not come first. Regulatory clarity comes first, and regulatory clarity is almost always preceded by political conflict. The louder the arguments, the closer the resolution. Election cycles amplify this effect because politicians need talking points while quietly ensuring financial systems do not break. Ripple's ongoing dialogue with regulators, combined with XRP's unique legal status compared to most tokens, positions it as a potential winner when the dust settles. This is why you see sudden shifts in tone, delayed enforcement, and selective pressure. This is why insiders are calm while retail is panicking. This is why whales accumulate during political uncertainty, not after it clears. And here is the part that almost nobody wants to say out loud. Political activity around crypto is not designed to protect retail investors. It is designed to control the transition. Control from legacy rails to digital rails. Control from opaque systems to programmable liquidity. XRP fits neatly into that transition because it does not threaten the system, it upgrades it. That is why banks can work with it, that is why regulators can tolerate it, and that is why institutions quietly prepare for a future where speed, compliance, and scalability matter more than ideology. This realization is where fear turns into clarity, but it also sets the stage for the next phase, the moment where a catalyst forces the market to reprice reality and FUD is weaponized to shake out weak hands right before the move. Esteemed XRP holders, this is the point in the conversation where emotions spike, narratives flip, and the market deliberately tries to break you because every major move in history has required one final psychological purge before liftoff. The catalyst everyone is waiting for will not arrive with fireworks and confetti. It will arrive disguised as confusion, delay, and fear. Political headlines will scream uncertainty, regulators will posture, commentators will mock, and price action will look disappointing on purpose. This is how liquidity is harvested. This is how weak conviction is transferred to strong hands. And XRP, more than almost any other asset, has been conditioned through years of legal warfare to survive exactly this kind of environment. Here is the catalyst framework you need to understand. It is not a single announcement, it is convergence. A court clarification here, a regulatory guideline there, a policy shift buried in a document nobody reads, a bank pilot quietly expanding corridors. When these elements align, price does not move gradually. It gaps violently. WTF, do you think happens when institutions that have been waiting for political cover suddenly get it? They do not buy the top, they accumulate during boredom, frustration, and disbelief. The same disbelief you are being fed right now through endless FUD about delays, lawsuits, and political gridlock. This is psychological warfare, not analysis. Now let's dismantle the FUD piece by piece. They say political uncertainty is bad for crypto, but history shows uncertainty precedes clarity. They say regulation will kill innovation, but regulation is what allows institutional scale. They say XRP is centralized, yet it is one of the few assets banks can actually use without blowing up compliance frameworks. They say Ripple controls everything, while ignoring the fact that decentralization without usability is just ideology. Every talking point is designed to trigger emotional exits, not informed decisions. Prepare for shock because the people spreading the loudest fear are often the least exposed to the asset they criticize. And here is the most dangerous FUD of all. The idea that nothing will change, that politics will stall forever, that XRP will remain stuck in limbo. This narrative exists solely to exhaust you. Markets do not reward patience loudly, they reward it suddenly. Political systems move slowly until they move all at once. When that switch flips, when policy direction becomes undeniable, the market will not wait for retail to get comfortable. It will move before consensus forms. This is why you must understand the setup now, not after confirmation, because confirmation is always expensive. We are now at the edge of the final phase. where price justification collides with reality and the warning becomes unavoidable. The question is no longer if political activity matters for XRP, but how violently the market reacts when it finally accepts what has been building underneath the noise. Respected holders, this is where the conversation becomes uncomfortable for anyone who has not positioned early, because price justification is not about hope. It is about math, liquidity, and political inevitability colliding at once. XRP does not need hype-driven narratives to justify higher valuation. It needs usage, clarity, and scale. And those three forces are now circling each other faster than at any point in its history. When you understand that global payments move trillions daily, when you understand that even marginal efficiency gains translate into massive value capture, the idea that XRP remains perpetually suppressed becomes laughable. This is not about retail moon dreams. This is about infrastructure repricing. When political clarity unlocks institutional participation, valuation models change overnight, not gradually. Prepare for shock, because the market you think you understand will not resemble the market that reacts to resolution. Here is the warning nobody wants to deliver honestly. Price will not wait for headlines to feel safe. The largest moves will happen when disbelief is highest and conviction is weakest. If you are waiting for politicians to sound confident, for regulators to sound friendly, for media to declare crypto safe, you are volunteering to buy late. XRP's price justification lives in corridors, not candles, in settlement volume, not social sentiment. Once political risk flips from undefined to defined, even if that definition is restrictive, capital can finally model risk, and modeled risk invites scale. Scale does not negotiate with your emotions. Scale reprices assets aggressively and without apology. WTF, do you think happens when suppressed liquidity is released into a thin market that has spent years shaking out believers? This is the final warning phase, because history shows that assets tied to system upgrades do not move linearly. They compress, frustrate, and exhaust, then they explode into ranges that make previous price action look irrelevant. Political activity is the excuse, not the cause. The cause is readiness. XRP is ready technologically, legally relative to peers, and institutionally aligned. The risk is not that this fails quietly. The risk is that it succeeds violently while most people are still arguing about whether it should. If you do not respect that possibility, the market will teach you respect the hard way. Honored viewers, this is where everything comes together and the picture becomes impossible to ignore, because what you are witnessing right now is not random volatility or political theater. It is the slow tightening of a spring that has been compressed for years. Political activity around crypto is not noise, it is signaling, and XRP sits in a uniquely dangerous position for those who are unprepared, because it bridges old systems and new ones at the exact moment those systems are being forced to evolve. The mainstream will tell you to wait, to stay cautious, to trust the process, but history punishes those who wait for comfort. By the time consensus agrees, opportunity has already moved on. Understand this clearly as we close. Markets do not reward belief, they reward positioning. They do not announce transitions politely, they disguise them as chaos. Every regulatory delay, every political argument, every confusing headline has served one purpose: to exhaust attention and drain conviction before resolution. When clarity finally arrives, whether through policy, court outcomes, or institutional rollout, it will not feel like relief, it will feel like whiplash. XRP holders who understood the political undercurrents will not be asking what happened, they will already know. This is your moment to decide whether you are consuming information passively or using it strategically. If this breakdown shifted your perspective even slightly, you already know what to do next. Stay informed, stay critical, and stay ahead of narratives designed to arrive after the move. Because once this transition completes, once political uncertainty gives way to defined frameworks, the question will not be whether XRP deserved to move, but why so many ignored the signals when they were hiding in plain sight.